OCO family, so I'm back with part 2 of Mayans and Montezuma. We left off on Kukulkan, meaning divine serpent or the divine four. Smoke with me again this session as we continue to dive deeper. The Maya sculptors or scribes began to represent this symbol of divinity. They must have searched for some object easy to depict, the sound of whose name resembled that of Ku or Kul. The Maya adjective feathered being kukum, the artist evidently devised the plan of representing as an effigy of the divinity, a serpent decorated with feathers, and to this simple attempt at representing the divine serpent in sculpture or pictography is due, in my opinion, the origin of feathered serpent. Effigies found in Yucatan and Mexico have so puzzled archaeologists. Of Kukulkan, the culture hero of the Mayans, it is recounted that he had been one of 4 brothers who had originally ruled Chichen Itza over 4 tribes. These brothers chose no wives but lived chastely and ruled righteously until a certain time one died or departed and 2 began to act unjustly and were put to death. The one remaining was Kukulkan. He appeased the strife which his brother's acts had aroused, directed the minds of the people to the arts of peace, and had caused to be built various edifices. After he had completed his work at Chichen Itza, he founded the great city of Mayapan, destined to be the capital of the Confederacy of the Mayas. Friar Diego de Landa relates that the current opinion amongst the Indians of Yucatan was that this ruler had gone to Mexico, where after his return he was named Quetzalcoatl and revered as one of their gods. Before analyzing the Nahuatl rendering of Kukulkan's name, I will point out the noteworthy coincidence that during his reign at Chichen Itza and Mayapan, he practically united in his person and assumed the offices formerly fulfilled by 4 rulers, of which he had only been one. I would moreover draw attention to the remarkable sculptured columns which support the main portal of the main pyramid temple called El Castillo at Chichen Itza. These represent gigantic feathered serpents and are figured on page 104 of Mr. W. M. Holmes' most instructive, useful archaeological studies, part 1, Monuments of Yucatan. The feathers carved on the massive columns are evidently the precious tail feathers of Quetzal, which have peculiarity of exhibiting, according to the way the light falls upon them, blue, red, yellow, and green colors, precisely those assigned to the 4 quarters by the Mexicans, and for all we know, to the contrary, by the Mayas. Whether this feather was chosen for its peculiarity or for its beauty only, as with that which to deck the effigy of the divinity, can of course only be conjectured. In Mexico, numberless effigies of feathered serpents exist. The resemblance of the sound of the Nahuatl words, forgive me if I butcher these words, feather equals Iwetle, and heaven or sky equals Ilhuicac, should be recorded here as a possible reason for the association of feathers with the serpent, and as a means of conveying the idea of its divinity. It should also be noted that Quetzal, the name of the most precious feathers the natives possess, resembles in sound the second part of the Nahuatl words for flame, equals Tlilcucaloro, or for tongue of fire equals Tlilcucanenepili. That the feathered serpent was an image of the divinity is finally proven, I think, by the following passage from Sawagans, which establishes that the earliest form under which the divinity was revered by the Mexicans was that of fire. Of all the gods, the most ancient one is the god of fire, who dwells in the midst of flowers, in an abode surrounded by 4 walls, and is covered with shining feathers like wings. It is thus shown that whilst the word Iwado equals feathers suggested something divine, the word Quetzal, besides being the name of a particular kind of feather, conveyed the idea of something resplendent or shining. The name for serpent, Coto, signified twin. Thus there is a profound analogy between the Maya and Mexican symbol, pointing however to the Yucatan form as the most ancient. Let's see how the name Quetzalcoatl occurs in Mexico. It is given as the name of the supreme God whose substance was as invisible and intangible as air. The constant reference to air in the connection with the supreme divinity calls him to be also adored as the god of air and of the four winds. On the other hand, the divine title of Quetzalcoatl was carried by the culture hero whose personality has been discussed and who was a Yucatec ruler and a high priest. Saogan's book informs us that Quetzalcoatl, the plural form of the word Quetzalcoatl, was employed to designate the high priest, elsewhere designated as the supreme pontiffs, who were the successors of Quetzalcoatl. He also states that the high priest of the temple was the representative of the god Quetzalcoatl. The priest who was most perfect in his conduct and in wisdom was elected to be high priest and assumed the name of Quetzalcoatl. There were two such high priests equal in rank and honors. One of these, the Quetzalcoatl Toltec Tlamatcalque, was in the service of Huitzilopochtli. Without pausing here to analyze this title, since it will be discussed in detail in another publication, I will only repeat that after years of careful research, I have obtained certainty that the foregoing title and office were those held by Montezuma at the time of conquest. What is more, I can produce ample evidence to prove that he was the living personification of Huitzilopochtli, one of the divine twins and of the above. He was not the first Mexican ruler who had filled this exalted role, for it is recorded that Asha Yakata and one of Acamapochtli's successors had represented in life our god Huitzilopochtli. After his death, his effigy was first covered with a fine robe representing Huitzilopochtli. Over this was hung a dress of talok. The next garment was that of U'alahua, equals the Lord of the Will, and the fourth was that of Quetzalcoatl. Let us now see how Montezuma's personification of Huitzilopochtli was carried out by his life and his surroundings. According to Bernal Diaz, an eyewitness, when the great Montezuma came forth in state to meet Cortez, he was conveyed on a sumptuous litter, being thus raised above the earth. For all those that don't know, a sumptuous litter is just like an expensive bed that the royal people was carried on by their subjects. When he descended from this and walked, the golden soles from his sandals prevented his feet from coming into direct contact with the ground. He was supported, i.e. partially held up, by his four principal lords and a baldachin adorned with light greenish blue feathers, gold, pearls, and jade, representing Xochitl, Iwakatili, and the verdant or blue sky, which was, by the way, the title of Huitzilopochtli and was carried over his head. Alright family, so it's getting close to that 10-minute mark, so I'm gonna close it out right here. We're gonna resume in part 3 and finish this build out. And please subscribe to the YouTube Smoking Sessions with Chief Pressure. Peace, love, and power to all my people. Till next time.
Smoking Sessions with Chief Pressure.